Afternoon, everyone. My name is Kanya Makiza. I'm representing the BMF YP Sandton. And as a branch, we thought that in these difficult times with COVID-19 and so forth, we're going to host a series of webinars that talk to various aspects that are affecting young professionals at the moment. The first of these will be this financial literacy webinar where we have Bula Krokamp. You guys have already just met him now. And he'll just be giving some financial advice, some investment opportunities, and generally how to deal with such uncertain times going forward. So without further ado, yeah, Bula, you can take over, and we can take questions and answers at the end of the session, and we can hopefully have a debate about it.
Cool. Thank you, Kanya. Let me just open up my presentation. That's it. Just a small introduction of myself. My name is Bula Krokamp. I'm with a company called GRETAEST. Then I'm a financial advisor, wealth creator, market analyst, money guru, etc., etc. So the top points to cover in general financial management. We jump to 10 basic principles. The first one is organizing your finances. Make sure you know what's going on in your personal finances, in your investments, etc. The second point would be obviously spending less than you earn. The third point is to put your money to work. Fourth one is limit debt to income producing assets. Continuously educating yourself, understanding risk. Diversification is not just for investments, and that's a substantial term that needs to be understood, especially in these times. Maximizing your employment benefits. Make sure that you know all your employee benefits with the company you are, and if you have your own practice. Pay attention to taxes. I know it's a wide subject to cover, but I feel like they should actually teach us how to do taxes and stuff like that in school. But yeah, and then obviously the last point is to plan for the unexpected. So jumping into the importance of life cover. Life insurance is a valuable income replacement option if you die and your family still had mortgage, college, and other big expenses. The focus of life cover is to have an advisor to personalize a risk portfolio for your needs. You should actually have a good relationship with your financial advisor, and if you don't have one, obviously the best time is to jump and get one. When the best time is to start with your life insurance? Well, as soon as you can afford it. The younger and healthier you are, the less you'll pay in life cover premiums. So you can actually lock now in a low rate for the next decade or two when you and your loved ones are most vulnerable. The amount of cover will obviously depend on your certain lifestyle. And then after that, obviously regarding your insurance, you should actually insure your greatest asset. And your greatest asset is you. Kanya, just to make sure the audio is still fine that side, eh?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, perfect. Then obviously insurance is all about providing a financial safety net that helps you take care of yourself and those ones you love and need the most. Insurance provides financial support and reduce uncertainty in business and human life. It provides safety and security against particular events. One of the biggest financial problems in the modern world is debt. We try to live a certain standard and create more and more debt for ourselves and the loved ones. This COVID-19 pushed us to see we don't need to live this actual certain lifestyles anymore. Without insurance, we actually just create more debt for ourselves. Here comes an interesting part, and this is the part where I excel and have most of my clients reaching out for me, and it's obviously investments. So this is what we'll mainly cover in this webinar as well. But before you can understand investments, you need to understand risk. If you do not educate yourself, investments can become an acute problem. So how do we invest when markets crashed? COVID-19 wreaked havoc in markets. However, buying and selling stocks based on emotions or gut reactions to temporary volatility can derail your investments plans. So as of March 2020, global stocks have seen a downturn of at least 25% during the crash. and 30% in most G20 nations. On 20 March, Goldman Sachs warned us that the US GDP would shrink to 29% by the end of the second quarter of 2020, and the unemployment could skyrocket to at least 9%. So it's better for you to trust your advisor with your investments and not your own intuition. When you go to the doctor, you don't diagnose yourself and prescribe your own medication. And when you take your car for repairs, you don't tell the mechanic what to do. When you go to war, you don't tell the captain when to shoot. So why would you tell your advisor what to do with your investments? There's a fine line on investments where you need to understand the definitions of trust, persistency, patience, fiduciary, acknowledgement, and opulence. If everyone understood investments, then everyone was rich today. Saving money is the best discipline and teacher, but also saving money is also a missed investment opportunity. So let's talk about a little bit of retirement, and especially when to start with retirement, and to understand when to start as soon as possible. Only 6% of people can retire successfully. If you start to save 15% to 25% of your income from age 20 to 65, then you can also. I always say compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Those who understand it benefit from it. Those who don't pay for it. So let's take a market of about 10% interest for retirement, and you start at the age of 20. You'll pay a premium of about 1,000 Rand each month, and then at the end of term of 45 years, you'll sit with a retirement fund of about 10 million Rand. In today's money, that's a lot. In future value, that's not a lot. Let's say you didn't start at age 20 and you waited up until age 28. Obviously, your term would decrease, and you will need to only have pay for 37 years left. So what that means is your premium is almost going to double just to end up on the same amount of 10 million for retirement. And that's where it's also substantial to know and important to know. The sooner you start, the better, especially regarding compound interest on certain financial portfolios. Then we come to income protections during these times. Protecting your income can be one of the smartest financial moves an individual can make, but it's also expensive. Having life cover in place is beneficial for people we leave behind. But what if we die? But what if we don't die by injuries or illness? That is why it's important to always make sure you're covered in a full risk portfolio. That means life cover, disability cover, severe illness cover, and an income protection cover. To understand income protection and to understand how it works on a risk portfolio and together integrated with all these products. So that's why it is very important to have these products with the institution, with integrated products that work together, that give you paybacks, etc., etc. Then it comes to will and estate planning. How much does it actually cost to die in South Africa? And not a lot of people understand that it actually costs money to die. So the average cost of winding up an estate in South Africa is about 2.5% of the gross value of the assets, plus VAT. Then there's some ways around additional estate duty when your spouse is the beneficiary. So I would highly recommend you speak to your advisor regarding your will. It does not make sense to tick all the boxes, but the will box is not ticked. So we've got a risk portfolio in place. You're sorted out with your finances. You've got retirement in place, but you don't have a will in place. So actually, you're sorting out your whole portfolio, but you're not sorting out the admin side of it. So that's why I say it's always important to make sure that your advisor helps you with your will and estate planning. Then just a small video I want to show you guys, and please take time. I actually watch this video every morning before my day starts, because it helps me to focus on the right things in life regarding finances, and to help people with their financial situations. So just have a look. Excuse the grammar mistakes, but yeah, let me quickly see how we're going to play this video for you guys. Kanya, you'll just tell me when you don't have audio that side, eh?
Life can throw you some curves. And it's not just the things that you see coming, but sometimes it's the things that you didn't.
Sorry,
life can throw you some curves. And it's not just the things that you see coming, but sometimes it's the things that you didn't see coming that hit you out of nowhere, that set you back in such a way that it seems like you can't get over. And you've reached your limit, and your bandwidth is full. You already said, I can't take another thing. And then out of nowhere, here comes something you didn't see coming, and you're in it. And in your homes, somewhere in your heart, these words are echoing. Am I going to make it? When you get into a tight spot, and everything goes against you until it seems that you cannot hold on for a minute longer, never give up then, for that is just the place and time that the tide will turn. There are times that your energy feels so depleted that you want to give up, that it looks just totally impossible. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, don't give up then. That's when you've got to fall forward, when life is kicking dirt in your face. Don't give up then. That's when most people turn back. As long as you're alive, there is hope. You're still alive. You're still here. It's never too late. And it's never too dark. And we can always turn things around. There's going to be bad days, there's going to be dark days, but you got to embrace it, because that pain is what makes you stronger. Pain is the high cost of growth. If you want to grow up, you want to be mature, there is no way to do it without pain. You can't grow up on easy street. And the very thing that discourages you is the very thing that develops you. No one's coming to save you. No one's coming to save you. The only person that's going to make a drastic change in your life, whether that's physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, the only person that is going to dig you out of your hole is who? You. You have to do it for you. You've got to become courageous to stand up within yourself, to face it and step forward. We all get a taste of that victim mentality, the why me? You can become the victim of the situation or the victor of the situation. You need to be the master of your emotions, not let them affect you. You're the dictator. You're the captain of your boat, whether you let things affect you in a negative way or a positive way. I don't lose. I only win or learn. In life, there's only winning or learning. All your problems become gifts once you learn from them. And some of you have allowed adversity to make you stop. And I'm telling you right now, don't give up. I'm telling you right now, don't give in. Get through it. Execute, execute, execute. In the midst of adversity, execute. You're going to work through this. You're going to get up. You're going to get dressed. You're going to get out. And you're going to do what you've been called to do. You're going to be what you called it. And you're going to prove to everybody that tried to break you, everybody that tried to kill your dream, you're going to prove all of them wrong. And if you can work through your pain, I'm guaranteeing you, on the other side is a reward. Pain is not permanent. Pain is temporary.
That's it. I just need to connect my headphones back on. Sorry, guys. So my next question obviously would be then, do you know your advisor? And then when is the right time to chat with an advisor? I always say yesterday is too late. I've got access to the most elite advisors in South Africa. So like I told Plesko as well, I've got my details and I'll make them available, and I'll give them to Kanya as well, so that you guys can share my number and email or whatever. If you guys need access to some of those advisors or my closing this application here, or my personal expertise, I can help you as well. So let's quickly have a little bit of chat about investments. I'm just struggling to get my video back on. That's it there. So let's quickly chat a little bit about investments, and that's why Kanya and Bleska came out and reached out to me to chat to you investments during lockdown. To understand investments, I had to show you guys you need to understand risk portfolios and those stuff, because it works together and in hand and integrated. Without having risk portfolios in place, it's not making sense to do investments. I don't think you'll find a financial advisor who will help you with investments if you don't have your risk portfolio in place, especially regarding benefits. Most of the time, when you've got risk portfolios in place, you get paybacks, etc., on your investments. That is actually quite amazing and massive. So to look at stock markets, stuff like that, doing investments, when to invest. I know 2009, that's the last time we had a great fall in the market, and that was the year with one of the most volatile markets around, and we had the most millionaires coming out of 2009 than ever before. And that's just because some of the people understand and some of them don't. It's a very emotional market times now, and it's difficult to make decisions when markets crash, because we're not aware and we're uneducated on investments. So that's why I want you, and I want to challenge you, and that's why I showed you that motivational video, because that's my video I watch every morning before I jump in and start working. And I want to challenge you to educate yourself and then focus on investments, focus when to invest, know yourself and know your limits, and also know what type of investor you are. Do you want to invest aggressive? Do you want to invest moderate? Do you want to invest moderate aggressively? But on top of that, I want you to understand that the outside world is a major impact in South African markets. Just by Donald Trump's speech he gave, where he actually banned China out of the markets of US, what impact it had in South Africa, how to monetize out of those situations, how to pull benefit, how to know when to invest into dollars. The session can go on and on and on, and it's actually a wide range to discuss. And I told Pelesha my personal advice is available for anyone if you guys want. I'm biased on this platform. I'm not going to speak any products over other products or enable anyone access to certain information that it's not available to the public. So that expertise are available out of my personal heresy. So I'll give you my information. You've got my information. I don't know, Kanya, if you want to share my number and email afterwards, if that's possible for the attendees to have access to my information. That's completely fine with me. But that's the main thing I want you to do is focus on investments. If you are doing investments, what I want you to do is to focus on news. And I'm not talking about News 24, stuff like that. I'm talking about investment news. What is the markets doing? What type of chain reactions is there in the markets? And then once you've educated yourself and understand what risk is and how to monetize out of risk, then you'll be ready to start playing with your own finances. But you need to have a risk portfolio in place before you look at investments, and that's the main thing. So I know nowadays with this COVID, we look at, I want to lower my premiums. I'm paying car insurance. Everything is just too high now. I want to lower everything. But in certain aspects, that's actually the portfolios that you do not want to move around and change, because that's your insurance at the end of the day. That's the little present that financing is giving you that you need to look after and not reduce premiums. I don't say go and weigh up premiums and look at what's available in the market. I'm saying don't reduce them, don't reduce your cover, because at the end of the day, if you don't have health and wealth, what are you living for? I'm not saying chase money, because if you chase money, you'll never find happiness. What I'm saying is, if you want to do investments, make sure you understand risk. Make sure you have got a risk portfolio in place, and then educate yourself in investments. Know what type of investments are personalized for you. What are your personal preferences with your investments? How do you want to see your investments grow? And once you've understand that, you will know in what funds to invest, and what certain funds, because you've got different types. You've got endowments. It depends on the vehicle you're using. You've got endowments investments, you've got flexi investments, that's a little bit more aggressive. But as soon as the markets crashed, you must understand that your investment also crashed. There is investment funds available with guaranteed rates. Normally, when I talk investments, my clients always think, okay, dollar. It's not always dollar. There's actually more US citizens investing into South Africa than South Africa investing into ourselves. So that's just to understand when to invest, is to have a good relationship with your advisor.
Sorry, Bula.
Kanya, yes.
Not disturbing there. We just have a request, a question quickly. Just waiting for it to come in.
I see there's a chat. I don't know if I have access to it as well.
So while we wait, there's one question on the chat. It says, how does one start investing, and what is the best thing to start investing in?
So that's a good question. That's one of the most common question I get when young people start to invest or want to invest. So it all depends on, obviously, your income, how much you can invest, and then once you've set aside the amount, obviously, also if you want to do recurring investments, which is the best when you start young, just to make yourself comfortable with that monetary premiums. I mean, every month going off, let's say 800 Rand minimum dollar fund, you do a premium of 800 Rand each month, start investing. The best to do is actually to copy the big companies like Goldman Sachs, all those type of funds. They've got funds available on the web. They've got vehicles available on the web where you can actually just access what the math guys do there, and then you just copy their funds, and then you do the same swaps, do the same changes as them. But my personal advice would be, if you're only starting to invest now, rather invest into your retirement, because obviously you've got there some wonderful tax benefits. On investments, you pay tax. On retirement, you actually get your tax return. So how that works is, let's say you contribute 1,000 Rand towards your retirement annuity, and you must understand that's also an investment. If you invest 1,000 Rand into your retirement annuity, you can actually get that 1,000 Rand rebate, which it's not a tax return, but it lowers your tax premiums.
Okay, everyone. So you can post your questions on the chat if you'd like, or you can request to join the meeting room and ask a question directly. Question from Alessa Segese: is it wise to invest in an entity that has undergone an unbundling process?
Okay, to understand investment opportunities and ongoing investments, sometimes it's difficult to see the foresee future on your investment portfolio. So that's where it came in, where I said we need to understand the risk. If you know what the foresee future is on that certain investment portfolio, if you know what the board members are looking at, and then obviously speaking outside of COVID-19 now, let's say for a normal market on an investment and normal market, depending on the curve. Alessa, you need to know if you're looking at a V-curve investment or you're looking at a U-curve investment. It all depends on what type of investment it is, but the biggest...
We've lost you there, Bula. The sound has gone off.
And is that better now?
Yeah, that's better.
Sorry, I don't know where you lost me. Alessa, just to understand, the main thing about investment is actually to look at it in the long run. If you know what the funds are and what type of vehicle your investments are, and depending on the type of moderate of your investments, you need to know also that that investment should be fixed 5 to 10 years. I never do investments for my clients below 5 years, especially big investments, and especially now in these times. It's important to know that most market crash now. So to start a new investment, you should actually be aware and make sure you know what the funds are going to look at and foresee expectation. But yeah, to answer your question, it all depends on what type of curve your investment are, and we can actually have a private one, because that I can answer your question, but I'm going to keep you busy for half an hour now.
Okay, I hope Alex is happy. Next question is Joy. Joy is asking, says, I heard you speak of a risk portfolio. Can you elaborate more on what that is and its purpose?
Okay, so a risk portfolio, you've got two portfolios in the financial sector. You've got your risk portfolio and your investment portfolio, or your wealth portfolio. Your risk portfolio will be your life cover, your severe illness, disability cover, income protection, your health, all your grudge payments, or not grudge payments, but the things we need to insure, like our medical aid and stuff like that. So that's a risk portfolio, because we're running a risk of getting injured, we're running a risk of getting disabled, or death and stuff like that. So that's your risk portfolio. And then you've got your wealth portfolio, where you've got your savings, investments, and tax. So that's what I said about the risk portfolio. You need to have a risk portfolio in place to make sure that you pull most benefits out of your wealth portfolio, because most entities has got integrated products. For if you've got a life insurance, life cover in place, and disability cover and severe illness in place, and you do investment with the same entity, you get boosters and paybacks on your premiums, a lot of stuff like that, which actually helps at the end of the day regarding tax and stuff like that.
Okay, next question. It's from Kosinati Mazbuk. I've been recommended by a friend to invest in Satrix now. Is it a recommended investment platform? Which investment plan or account have the moderate risk?
Okay, that's a good question. There's a lot of investment platforms available. I know there's a lot of applications that you can actually have access on your phone, and the best thing for investments and to start investments is you've got all applications actually available with live updates, and most of those applications give you a demo account. So what I would do is, whatever you want to do with your current money and invest with your current finances, actually do a pro rata and then use the demo account and see and teach yourself and educate yourself. Investment is actually a full-time job. It's not like you're going to do investment now and then in a week's time maybe update it again or see how it does and how it did. To understand what the economy does is you need to actually update every 10 minutes to understand what's happening on an investment and a certain investment. So regarding the best platform, there's a lot of platforms available and a lot of investments available, depending on how much you want to invest. So I can't say yes or no. It's depending on what type of investment you're looking at. Is it a long-term investment, short-term? Is it to make a lot of money in the short-term period and run the risk, or do you want to make a lot of money but over a long period, which is the best investment to do, obviously. But what my advice would be is make use of the demo accounts. Normally it's like 1,000 Rand for opening up those accounts, and then you get the demo account for free. And then obviously as well on that platform, you can actually just copy and run into a trailer runner with the big companies like Goldman Sachs and Blues and all the big companies. So actually what I would recommend is do the demo and then just run with the big companies. Why struggle on your own? Because it will actually take you 5 to 6 years to understand investments in the stock markets.
Okay. Going to go back to Wilson. So Wilson has typed. So he says, most of us are not clued up on which portfolios, and it is difficult to make the right decisions with limited information. What should we look at when making an investment decision? I think you touched on it in terms of what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Hopefully, maybe Nkosnati will follow up with his question with more specific on what he's looking for.
Yeah.
Jeff, if you can just speak to that as well.
Yeah. Okay, Wilson. That's why. That's what I said actually in the presentation. Not a lot of people are clued up and understand actually what's going towards your portfolio and what you look at. That's what I said, and that's why I say have a chat to your advisor. Do you know your advisor? Do you even know a financial advisor? There's a lot of walk-bys. There's a lot of guys in the economy that says they're financial advisors and so forth, but to actually have access to the elite advisors is a good starting point. Sit with your advisor, let your advisor explain to you, because every risk and every investment portfolio is depending on your personal preferences, your personal lifestyle, and that will actually have a big impact on your investment as well. So that's why I'm saying sit with the advisor. It is a profession that's available. There's a lot of good entities outside. There's a lot of amazing products that you can actually use and monetize during investments. So that's why I say have an advisor. Make sure you know your advisor. Make sure you've got an advisor you sit with on a monthly basis and recap on investments, recap on products, savings. I can't explain to you how important it is to actually chat to your advisor about saving, just saving on premiums. All my clients actually, as soon as there's a new product in place, I actually confront them and tell them, listen, this and this is a new product. There's a saving of this, but there's red lights on this and this. So just be careful for these type of investments and so forth. And also, just be aware of advisors that's in it for the financial gain. Make sure you've got an advisor for the long run. When you're young, get a young advisor. I'm not saying someone that's not knowing the industry. What I'm saying is get someone to build a relationship. Your advisor should actually become your best friend. But yeah, there's a fine line between friendship and money and workplace. But yeah, to answer your question. Sorry, I see there's someone that's trying to speak. I don't know if you can get the audio. I can't hear anything here on my side. I think it's a Wilson, but I did answer his question. But if there is anybody any other questions, you can just pop up.
Hello, Wilson. Yeah, no, it's just feedback.
Okay.
But okay, let's go on to Ayanda, and then I'll go on to Nokolo next. So Ayanda's question is touching into what you're talking about right now. And she's talking about shares. What's the best way to know which shares to choose and when to choose when starting out? Sorry. And I think she's asking, I know you mentioned having a relationship with a financial advisor. I think she's asking from a point of view of if you're going alone or
alone. Yes. Okay. So shares, we need to understand we're talking about share units. That's on the JSE. That's with big entities, depending on umbrella funds, stuff like that. But if you're going into shares, what is the best way? That's the same as the previous advice. Get a demo account, and then obviously start with the small things that you know, like it was actually Sassel paid for a few new Bentleys in this time because there was some of the advisors and some of the individuals that actually knew what's going to happen. So the best thing to do is if you know a shared unit has got a massive drop and it's not going to debt rescue or financial rescuing, it is best to look at the shares that's got in a V curve, and out of the recession, maybe see to do investment at the lowest. It's difficult to expect when is the lowest point and when to buy. But if you can predict when is the lowest point, that would be the best time to buy, especially in a V curve, because then your buy shares at the lowest and you sell at the highest point. But that is to pull maximum fund out of the investment, is to understand the markets completely. And that's why I say, first, if you want to go on your own, start a demo account. That's actually the best advice. And then you can understand, because I can tell you, actually, when I was in my third year in investments, I thought I knew everything about investments, and I thought nobody could teach me anything. And I actually invested in a fund, and the whole thing crashed. And I thought, like, what's going on? Well, how did this happen? And etc. etc. And that's where I started to realize what risk is, and how to monetize out of investments and when to sell. Because my equations was correct, everything was correct, but I never sell on the right point. I never took advantage of the market on its highest point, and that's the important thing as well, to know when to buy, but also when to sell. Just because your fund is doing well doesn't mean you need to stay in it. Anything that goes up can come down. So the COVID is a good example. There was no advisor or no mathematics or scientists, in none of the equations there was COVID-19. So you've got investors, you've got advisors who tell you, listen, I've got this in this equation, but none of them are 100% correct. So yeah.
Okay, and touching onto this in terms of when to buy and when to sell, Nicolo is asking the current gold price of gold. The current gold price is 1785 and 22 cents, and the ZAR is currently quite strong.
Yeah.
And the South African rand is quite strong. So she's asking, when would it be the correct time to invest in gold?
Well, gold, to understand when to invest in gold is like any other investment. It's something that goes up and down, up and down. It's a good investment to teach yourself, because you're not going to gain a lot of money on that type of investment, unless there's a big spike. But I think there's only happened 3 big spikes in the last 15 years. So you must understand, if you want to make money out of it, these type of investments, you need to understand that you need to find the best fund. Gold is a good teacher. To invest into gold is a good teacher, because now you understand what type of influence there is in the gold markets. Then you will understand, as soon as the oil price go up, it's going to have an effect on the gold. As soon as the platinum price go down, it's going to have an effect on the gold. Also, depending on our exports, when is the exports open, closed, what type of influence has that got in the gold market? So there's a lot of things to bring into consideration when you want to invest in gold. But it's a good teacher to invest in gold, and I can't tell you when is the best time to invest into gold. The best time to invest is now, but I'm not saying particularly just in gold. Just to start with investments, and to understand compound interest is also substantial. But I see there's a little bit of a fine line here for you guys. You've got unit shares and you've got investments. Sometimes you've got an RA that's underlined share unit, but it's a more guaranteed fund. So to answer your question, you don't always need to invest into shared units and stock units. You've got different type of investments. You can actually invest into currency as well. You don't always need to invest just in gold or just in dollar. Diversification is amazing. I know they say don't put all your eggs in one basket, but I like to play around with portfolios. Put put 1,000 here, 1,000 there, 1,000 there. At the end of the day, the client sees a massive growth in one fund and small growth in other funds. But also, if they put all their eggs in one basket and that market crashed, then you're basically screwed on that investment and you need to start over for 5 years term. So, sorry, just to go back, she had a question on gold, and what was the other entity?
No, there was no other entity. She said the rand is quite strong right now. So
the rand, yes. To understand the rand as well, it is crucial to understand what impact Donald Trump's speech about China actually had in our currency. Actually, I'm doing a lot of investments for overseas clients into the rand because actually I think the rand is going to skyrocket against the dollar. So personal advice is actually, I think the rand is going to get stronger and then it's going to drop and get stronger again. And as soon as the economy markets are open and exports boom back to, sorry, I'll just see, go back here. And as soon as the markets boom back to what it is, I think it would be a good thing to be investing into the rands because and the dollar, because I think Trump is making $45 million that he's investing back into his own economy. So the dollar is obviously going to get stronger and stronger. But as I said, COVID can happen again. Something different from COVID can happen. To understand those risks, then you will understand investments. But understand when the markets are down, when the markets are going up, educate yourself. Educate, and then, like the video, execute.
Okay, another question from Ayanda. From where we're sitting now, it looks like anything related to technology is the way to go. Is it wise to invest in tech companies, seeing as COVID-19 and its effects will last for a bit?
Well, yeah, you actually answered your question there. I think for the last month, the entity with the biggest growth, if you placed 1,000 Rand into Zoom in January, you would sit with 3,752 Rand as of now. So, and Zoom is, but that's obviously directly according to the lockdown. All the companies used Zoom. So it was actually a no-brainer just to invest into Zoom. Nobody knew it's going to be that big. But yeah, I think there's a lot of entities, all the government, the parliament, all of them use Zoom. And that's just in our country. And it's not a South African company even. So yeah, tech changes are around the corner every day. Technology is getting massive. I mean, if we said 10 years ago, and we're doing this, giving advice over virtual, over digital platforms, we wouldn't even, you would laugh at me. So investing into technology is a massive upturn. I think if you look at some of the biggest entities like Apple, Samsung, those entities, if you had shares 20 years ago, you would actually be close to $1 million today. And I'm talking about substantial shares. So investing into technology now is, I think, a good thing, but also as technology grows, there's a lot of competitors. So to choose the right type of entity would be the best choice. And I can't tell you what is the right entity because it's such a volatile market. And but just looking at Tesla, I mean, if you can buy shares now, Tesla, I think in the next 20 years, Tesla is going to be the biggest company the world have ever seen. They're going from automotives to space transport to banking. I mean, Elon Musk is one of my biggest mentors I've ever met in my whole life before. And just by speaking with him, 10 minutes with that type of person is amazing. But to understand tech, you need to, I can't compare the type of discussions I've had with him and how he speaks and the type of info he gets into technology is massive. So technology is a good investment, but as technology progresses, there's going to be a lot of competitors as well.
Okay. Another one from Wilson. I'm also training online on JSE and noted that it is difficult to play in this space. The market is volatile. Most of the software is unable to provide good guidance. On Sasol shares, for example, couldn't predict that it will move from 365 Rand per share down to 25 Rand. So if one is investing on shares, what are the market indicators, the best market indicators, I'm assuming, for one to look at?
Okay, cool.
In this environment, I'm thinking that's the question.
Yes, in this environment. So to understand, giving advice during this time is also just assumptions and making equations out of what the markets are currently based. Because in our lifetime, there has not been a COVID. There was the black after the black recession, and we've got the depression era, but we haven't had COVID-19 before. So this is a new thing to the markets, and it's actually interesting to see what the markets are going to do during this COVID times. So to ask what is the indicators is a difficult question, because we're not done with this market. We're not done with COVID yet. So we don't know what all the indicators are going to be and what type of chain reaction some of the indicators are going to be. But the main things to look at, actually, that Sasol thing that you said, it's actually funny. I had a client. He had a Sasol investment before COVID. He had a Sasol investment, and he actually made a loss. And then COVID came, Sasol dropped again and skyrocketed, and he lost an investment just because he wasn't educated, and he actually lent his ears out to other individuals and made a loss on his investment. But to look for main indicators on a mark like Sasol, obviously the main thing you could have looked there is lockdown was in place. Nobody was driving around. So just looking at fuel, it would mean Sasol is going down. The prices, I mean, I think for the first time, fuel was so cheap during lockdown that some of the people actually bulk bought. So just looking at lockdown and the period of lockdown and fuel prices and exports and imports not coming in or going out during the lockdown period, that was actually a good indicator. And what you would do then is you would actually anticipate when is the lowest price going to be. And then obviously if Sasol is a big entity, I don't believe they will ever go for debt rescue or business rescue. So to invest on those entities when it's the lowest would be the best. So you will anticipate when would be the lowest point, buy maximum shares you can that's affordable to you, and understanding what risk is to be able to say, this is a risk, so I am risking this money into this entity. And then obviously understanding that the lockdown is going to be over, transport companies are going to start again, exports are going to open again. So there is going to be a massive fluctuation, and then it's going to skyrocket. And to understand then it's not going to skyrocket forever again, because now Sasol needs to do shares as well. It was the end of the financial year. You need to bring that into consideration also. So the shares buying out, dividends that need to be paid out, and obviously investing back into Sasol, back into technology, fleet management. There's a lot of things you actually need not inside info, but understanding what such entity are investing back into the entity as well, to understand there's going to be a drop again, and then there's going to be a growth, and then it's going to be a drop. To be exact on those anticipations would be the best equation for those type of entities.
Thanks, Will. Okay, another question. I recently started an offshore investment account with a company handling another account, being a unit trust which also invests into offshore. So the question is, does it make sense to have a separate account for offshore, or can I ask my advisor to move my pre-existing account to offshore?
Well, it all depends on what the current term of your investment is. Normally, you can't actually, or you can, but I won't advise it to move an investment before 5-year terms, because that's what normal 5 to 10 years investment needs to sit, and to see actually what the market does on those investments. To open a separate account, it is a separate account to do offshore investments, especially in a unit trust, depending on if it's a currency or entity, and to understand if that investment is under an umbrella fund or not, is it in a group fund or not. It actually is a separate. But to move current investments, why would you want to move? Is it a bad investment? Stop the investment, open a new investment, start with your 5-year term over again. If you want to have exposure to offshores and to monetize on those investments, why not just add to your current investment? If the market is good and you're seeing a good return on your investment, why not just fund back into that investment? If it's doing bad, why not check maybe pulling out some investments, go with the entity with big returns like Discovery or someone like that, get an advisor, nice advisor, get boosters on those capital, and then invest locally. You're not always going to get just good investment from dollars. It's also the current situation locally is also a good investment place.
Okay, I was going to say I've got about 2 more questions here, and then we pretty much reached the end of the hour.
Yeah, so sorry, I only have 2 minutes left. Sorry.
Yeah, after these 2 questions, I don't know. Can you take 1 or 2 more, and then I share your email address, then people can contact you afterwards.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so the next question I have here is: does growth necessarily mean a good return in investment? That is from Peggy Sisa.
Sorry, just ask again.
Does growth necessarily mean a good return on investment?
Well, if you've got growth in investment, it is a good return. If there's not a growth, there's no return. Depending on what type of income you've got and what type of investment fund it is. Is it a group fund? Is it an individual fund? Is it an endowment? What type of investment vehicle is it? Determining on what growth you've got on your investment and what your income tax bracket is, you must understand, depending on if there's capital gains tax, you pay actually capital gains tax. So if you're in a high income bracket tax and you've got a good growth, you've got a lot of capital gains tax to pay. But if you're at the low income and you've got a massive growth, your capital gains tax is actually also small. So that's why I'm saying it's also important to contribute towards your RA. So everything is actually at the end of the day linked. So you will almost never find a person that's with an entity doing investments alone. You will always find an individual to see they've got risk portfolios and endowments and retirement annuities before they've got good investment terms and good investment growths. But yeah, the short term, if there's a growth in the investment, you should see a good return. And if you don't see a good return, go back to your administration costs, see what your administration costs are and your exit fees, and see maybe to change funds. If you've got growth in the investment and you don't see the return of it, something is wrong.
If I can just take a liberty to add to that question before I go to Churchill's question. In terms of the return, I understand there's some people who will invest obviously in the growth of the company, I'm guessing. And perhaps maybe the question is, there's people who invest for growth, and then there's also for dividends. Could you maybe talk to that as well? In terms of investing specifically just to get return on dividends versus on the growth of the share?
Yeah, no, it makes sense to ask that question, but also you must understand if your employees of a certain company and investing back into your company and to monetize the dividends paying out to you is also a type of investment. I mean, it's money you're entitling to that actually going to pay out. But you must understand there's a fine line between that and inside information. So you can't actually monetize your money and investment into dividends and then actually to let's say boycott the payouts into separate dividends. So there's some law regulating some of those things. And it's also to understand law, because that's why I always say also chat to your advisor, because they know the law and they know what is allowed and what is not allowed. But if you invest into your own entity, just to boycott dividends and to lower dividends, that is actually, you're not allowed to do that actually. So if you want to invest into the funds and the growth of the company, just do it and make sure that the dividends are linked towards the growth and not the payout.
Perfect. Okay, so from Churchill, I think it's going to be, just double check. Yeah, one last question from Churchill. What short courses can one upskill himself with in this current situation, and which institutions are credible?
Okay, so there's a lot of platforms. Actually, you've got local platforms, you've got international platforms. I think internationally there's massive platforms. Preferably, if you want to know the best, go to the best. But you must understand it's going to cost you a lot of money to do this type, and you also need some sort of qualification. I think the lowest qualification to be able to come into these markets is a BCom degree, to be able to get access to the big platforms and how the big platforms work. So obviously, to give you advice onto which platform to use, I can't tell you that. There's too much platforms you can use. There's a lot of training institutions, and I haven't been personally to those training institutions, so I can't tell you that institution or this institution. And beforehand, I actually told Lisa that I'm going to be biased, so I won't be naming any training institutions or platform that you can use. But if you want to start investments, actually, that's what I'm saying. Download the demo platform on any. All the live updates is live everywhere, and all the shared unit prices is the same on all the platforms. So to do a demo account, it's not going to make a difference where you're going to do it and where you educate yourself. So just to start, if you want to start with a demo account, like I said previously.
Okay, sorry. One last one that I missed. Sorry, man. What are the typical charges I can expect from an advisor, and how do I know if I am being charged too much?
Okay, cool, perfect. That's a wonderful question, actually. So depending on what type of product the advisor is giving advice, and especially investments, normally when you've got an advisor who specializes in investments like myself, I do investments for the road accident fund. So all the public payouts of, let's say, 10 million big investments, I do the investments for all the road accident funds. So in that sense, I don't take commission and administration fees. There is, yes, but initial advice fees, I don't take any initial advice fees, because I feel that there's actually an investment side, and some of those people are really disadvantaged after the accidents. So for me, it's just a personal thing, not asking. Sorry, it's a personal thing, not asking actually advising fee on investments for those clients. But if you have an advisor, by law they are entitled to up to 3.6% of investments, depending on what advice and what investment scheme it is. But you can look up to 3.6% of the lump sum, or if it's a recurring, I think it's 3.2%.
All right. Thanks. I think we've come to the end of the session now, pretty much. I see a lot of people saying thank you. It was an informative session. I also feel the same way. Thanks a lot, Wula, for joining us. The email, your email details have been sent on the chat for the attendees to see. But I can repeat it shortly if anyone needs it. I'm just waiting for admin just to send it to me. But if anyone wants to have a look at this presentation again, or maybe just review some of the question answers, this session will also be available on the BMF YouTube page for anyone to look at. And we will be definitely having a session like this again going forward. It's been good. It's been good to have a chat with you, Bula, and I'm
Okay,
sure we can
cool.
have you on again sometime.
No problem. Always available. Sweet, man. And then, yeah, like I said, there was 2 questions there where actually the answer was half an hour. It should be half an hour long. So those individuals can actually just contact me, and then we can have a nice chat. And then also for all the attendees are actually in a great advantage space now, because if you want to start investment and look at your risk portfolios, I've got access to some of the elite advisors in the industry. So just reach out to me, tell me who you are and where you got my number, and then I'll actually just get an advisor to contact you and help you with your portfolios. So for me to give back to the community, that's incentive from our side, just also giving back to the community during these tough times. So don't feel like you're gonna bother me. This is my life. This is my industry. I love helping people. Like I said, I do big investments for big clients and for the government. So for you to contact me out of a personal heresy, it's not gonna bother me whatsoever. So, and I'll most likely refer you to one of the top elite advisors in the industry. And then if you're a big client, I will look at your portfolio to see if I personally will handle the portfolio or just advise one of my advisors.
Thanks a lot, Bula. That sounds
Cool.
really good. So just one more time, your email is Bula, BOELA at kratoslife.co.za. So that's Bula, BOELE at Kratos, KRATOSLIFE.co.za. And thanks everyone for attending the session.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.
Thank you, guys.